Planet Dolan.
From knife-wielding roommates to encounters with the supernatural, the Planet Dolan crew reenacts some of the best true stories from our subreddit about the scariest things we've experienced. I'm Pecan, and today I'll be your narrator. Number 10 was submitted by Violet234. When Froggy was 6, something scary happened to her. One day, she decided to go into the woods behind her house to draw because it gave her good inspiration. She sat in front of a tree and began to draw. While she drew, Froggy suddenly felt cold despite the hot summer day. She looked up to see a girl about her age staring at her. She wasn't happy with Froggy being there and glared at her. Froggy tried to slowly back away from the creepy girl, but she followed. She ended up running into her house and locking the door. When she looked outside, she saw the creepy girl standing at the gate, giving her a creepy glare. The girl took her finger and dragged it across her throat. Now, Froggy wishes she would have caught it on film. Number 9 was submitted by The Bob Monster. Last summer, Derek went with his best friend and her family to a river. That afternoon, Derek and his friend floated on their inner tubes. Everything was going great until halfway down the river when Derek and his friend noticed that they were headed toward a small tree branch. Derek had to push himself off the branch so he wouldn't get impaled. That caused him to fall off of his inner tube, but luckily he was still tied to his friend. For the rest of the trip down the river, Derek hung on for dear life. When they eventually got to a drop-off point, Derek's friend tried to swim to shore, but the current was too strong. Derek, on the other hand, was pulled under the water multiple times by the current. A lady jumped in and pushed his friend to safety. Shortly after she was saved, 2 men jumped in and tried to save Derek, who thought he was going to die. His friend kept screaming his name, afraid that he was going to lose him. The men were able to save Derek, and he ended up getting pulled out of the river about 100 feet from where his friend had been pulled out. Ever since that day, he fears flowing bodies of water. Number 8 was submitted by Get Errands. The scariest thing Gergak ever experienced happened when he was in his bedroom. While watching Pornhub, he began jerking off. Forgetting the window behind him was open, a drunk guy in Spider-Man underwear looked inside and saw what Gergak was watching. So he began jerking off too. As soon as he noticed the guy, Gergak ran out of his bedroom and called the police. When the police arrived, they saw the guy on the bed, still jerking off to Pornhub. Number 7 was submitted by Alexander Dreaming. One time, Paprika and her class went on a 3-night field trip. She was bunked with one of her best friends along with the very weird girl. During the first night, Paprika woke up to find the weird girl standing over her. She held her phone in one hand, which she was using as a flashlight, and in the other hand held a knife. "What are you doing?" Paprika asked. Instead of answering, the girl screamed. Paprika's friend threw a book at the girl and ran out of the room with Paprika. They tried to hold the girl in their room, but she was forcing the door open. Paprika's friend was crying while the girl laughed and screamed. The teacher and some of the other students rushed out of their rooms to see what was going on. And before Paprika could explain, the girl ran out of the room and plunged her knife into Paprika's leg. Teachers managed to restrain the girl until authorities arrived. Number 6 was submitted by Seth Likes Emeralds 382. When Sid was 10, he was in bed watching YouTube videos while his mom was taking a shower. Just then, the power went out. His mom yelled at him from the shower to check the breaker box. So, Sid grabbed the crappy little flashlight and went down to the basement. When he looked in the breaker box, he saw that the breakers weren't broken but were turned off. That was when he heard something behind him. He looked to see 3 homeless men and a woman in the corner, all naked. When he shined the light on them, the homeless men screamed and the woman ran towards him. Sid ran up the stairs screaming.
"There are crazy people in the basement trying to kill me!"
He locked the basement door and called the police. The police came and arrested them. After that night, whenever Sid had to check the breaker box, he always brought a weapon. Number 5 was submitted by Dolan and the Fan. One time, Dolan went to visit his uncle and cousin. He was home alone playing Doom on the computer one night when his uncle called and said, "Me and your cousin are in the car in the end of the driveway, and the tire burst. Can you bring another?" Being a nice kid, Dolan said he would. After grabbing a tire from the garage, Dolan made his way down the long, pitch-black driveway. It was a dirt road with forest on either side. It normally took about half an hour to get from the house to the end of the driveway. About halfway down, Dolan saw an old lady staring at the sky with cut wrists. Dolan asked if she was okay, and she turned to him. The lady's lips were cut off, and that was when he noticed that she had a knife. He asked if she needed any help, but all the lady did was stare at him in silence. Then, she began slowly crawling towards him. Dolan ran down the rest of the driveway with the tire. After reaching his uncle's car and replacing the tire, they drove back to where Dolan saw the lady, but she was gone. Number 4 was submitted by Lips Gaming. When she was 14, Princess Proton lived with her dad, who was renting a house. One night, they were doing laundry when they realized they forgot hangers. Princess Proton ran up the stairs to get a few, but when she got to the top of the stairs, her dog came down the hall from her brother's room. The dog stood in front of her bedroom door and growled at it. When Princess Proton looked in her bedroom, she saw a person in a white dress on her bed. As soon as the person looked up, she disappeared. Princess Proton screamed, and her dad ran upstairs to see what had happened. He searched the house but didn't find anything. The next day, they told their landlord the story, and she became pale. She explained that the person in the white dress had also appeared to the other tenants in the housing development. After a little research, Princess Proton and her dad found out that the housing development had been built over an old Chippewa burial ground, and the person in white was the daughter of the chief who had died in a blizzard. It was the scariest thing Princess Proton ever saw. Number 3 was submitted by Michael Diamante. Zaragamba was home alone one afternoon watching TV. Suddenly, he heard a loud snap. At first, he dismissed it as a tree branch breaking under the weight of a squirrel. Then he heard 2 more loud snaps. Those snaps got his dog barking. The snaps sounded as if they were coming from upstairs, so Zaragamba went to investigate. Once he was upstairs, he turned a corner and found a large black figure with bright red eyes. It was standing at the end of the hallway. His dog didn't bark or growl at it. When Zaragamba looked at his dog, he felt a rush of wind go past him. He looked up to see that the figure was gone. Even though he believes that it was only his imagination, Zaragamba thinks it was still very scary because he had recently watched a documentary about a series of murders where the survivor claimed that a black figure with bright red eyes had killed his friends and had tried to kill him, too. Zaragamba never saw anything like that ever again. Number 2 was submitted by Duncanheads115. Hellbent and his friends decided to go camping one night, so they went into the woods, set up a tent, and hung out for a while. An hour later, Hellbent and his friends saw car lights. Soon, the car came into view and slammed into a large tree. A weird old man climbed out of the car with no pants and yelled, "I was trying to hunt some kids!" A moment later, he ran away. Hellbent and his friends had no idea what was going on, but it was still a scary experience for them. Number 1 was submitted by Ash Malibu 666. One Christmas, Ladybot was sitting at the table with her sister playing with Legos. Just then, they heard a noise. Ladybot turned around and looked out the window to see some men, one of whom was about to smash the glass. Without thinking, Ladybot grabbed her sister and older cousin and hid in the kitchen while her mom, dad, and dog fought the guys. Her uncle, who was in the kitchen with them, called the police. The police arrived shortly after and arrested the men. They also took the dog because he had bitten one of the men's fingers. Ladybot's mom ended up unconscious in a pool of blood, but ended up being okay. Once the police returned their dog, Ladybot was able to sleep again after several weeks of not being able to. Huge thanks for the folks over on our Planet Dolan subreddit for submitting their stories. We have another question for you. What's the creepiest thing your boss has ever done? Let us know in the Reddit page linked below, and you might be featured in a future countdown. This video was made possible by our fans over on Patreon. Thanks for your support, guys! Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon!